And good morning. Welcome back here, and thank you for tuning in. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller. We've appreciated you tuning in. Easy for me to say. And we are really glad that you're joining us today. We're going to get over and go through a lot of different things. And the whole premise, the whole idea here is to try and provide enriching activities that you can do with your kids with very simple things at home while we are out of school right now, and trying our best to keep that learning process going. We have been looking at lots of things related to patterns over the last couple of days. Patterns in nature, patterns in math, patterns in geography, and across every curriculum, actually, we're going to be looking at patterns in music a little bit later today. One of the things we've been asking folks at home to do is to get outside, and when there aren't clouds in the sky, see if you can actually find where the moon is and start taking a moon log. I did my homework last night, and I'm hoping you did yours as well. And to recap, when I was looking last night, I went outside, I looked towards the western sky, and I knew it was western because I ended up driving from my TV station home, and I was on 66 West. And as I was looking towards the western sky, I noticed that the moon was up. It was on the horizon, not on the horizon, but about halfway between the horizon and some of the buildings I was observing, and the moon had this appearance, and I'm going to draw it here on my porch. Let's take a look. The moon had an appearance where the right side of it was illuminated, and only just a little bit of the moon was illuminated. And per our recommendations from earlier shows, you can keep a moon log. You can take a picture of it, although let's face it, have you ever tried to take a picture of anything in the sky at night with your iPhone? It's just, or your cell phone or whatever, it's just a very hard thing to do. So we're asking you to maybe take a picture in your mind and draw it on your sidewalk if you have some chalk, or you can keep a log. But the moon looked like this as I first saw it, and then as the moon began to set, it actually had the appearance where the illuminated portion of it was actually almost towards the bottom of the moon. When you look at the moon, we're trying to observe how much of it is illuminated, and if you had to guess, if this was the moon right here, 100% being full, if this were the moon, I would probably guess that's about 20%, and I'm sorry, I can't write upside down. 20%, I'll write it right side up, was illuminated. That's what you can do. You can keep track of how the moon changes, and trust me, it does, over the next several days. The only unfortunate side of this is we could actually be dealing with cloud cover, and that could prohibit you from getting outside. We're going to take a look. We've had lots of interactions with folks that have been kind enough to tune in and send us information online, and WJLA.com is our online resource and home for Outside the Classroom. This is a video question sent in from one of our viewers, Kalin, who happens to be a birthday boy today.
When we finished school, we were learning about electric circuits. The question is, can electricity travel without metal?
Can electricity travel without metal? Metal's a conductor, and electricity can flow through the metal, and that's a great question, Colin. The answer is actually yes. You can transmit electricity, and it can be conducted through water as long as there are certain objects within the water. For example, if you had salt in the water, that would help to transmit the electricity, or other things in the water, and certain chemicals potentially could help to conduct the electricity. So the easy answer is yes. You can transmit electricity through other objects other than metal. Please keep your questions coming. We're here to provide a resource to help you get through all of this away from the classroom stuff that we as parents, we as teachers, we as everybody in the community, we're all trying our very best here to weather these few days and few weeks ahead. So we have beautiful weather today. We're going to be talking about patterns everywhere. I wanted to show a picture. This is a tweet that was sent to us. Thank you so very much for tuning into the show, and we really appreciate your feedback. If you see something you want us to talk about, then hit us up on Twitter. I'm at RyanMiller_WX. The WX is an abbreviation for weather. You can send your tweets, you can send your questions, you can send your comments through Twitter, through all of the media that we're trying to use. You can interact with us on Facebook Live and let us know how we can help. Now, we're going to transition for a moment from patterns that we've seen in nature and in math and primarily in science over the last couple of days, but we also want to explore the idea of patterns showing up in art and in dance and in music and even in exercise. Here's a video sent in to us from Kalin Brown, a friend of mine. Kalin in Richmond, Virginia, thank you so much. Kalin put together a video demonstrating the idea of patterns showing up in music.
Hey, what's going on? This is Kalin Brown here in Richmond, Virginia. I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Miller for inviting me to be on his show to talk about patterns. I'm a musician myself, and so I figured it would be cool to kind of show people how I make loops and how I make beats here in my room in Richmond, and how I use patterns to do that. I wanted to just show everyone here, my process and the patterns that are part of that process. Repetition is something that is so important because you hear it again and again and again, and your body gets used to it and can kind of place changes on it, how you want to dance, what you might want to do on it if it's like something that you're playing music to. Things can just kind of float over something if it's repeated. So I'm going to introduce my friend the bass drum. A 4 on the floor beat, driving force for dancing. And next I added a snare. Just kind of has that reverb on it to fill it out, and then it kind of connects to itself, and that's kind of a pattern. The kick, it lets your neck land somewhere, you know what I'm saying? And then there's one other snare that I added here that just kind of falls and echoes into the background to fill it out even more. And then I got this shaker that goes on the offbeat of the snare. I got this first melody that pops in. And it's rooted in the bass at C, D, and E, so it rises. And then there's just a little dun, 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 floating over it, just filling it in. And then I got this lower ambient synth in the background that's just really kind of giving it space, making it feel big. I also added this one piano here. Make it a little more grand. A little just more powerful and impactful. And then I add some bass to give it a low end.
Hi everyone, this is Courtney at the DC Moms Blog. I hope you're doing well. I have 2 of my 4 kids here. This is Evangeline and this is Solomon, and we're going to show you some fun things that we are doing at home. So real quick, I want to show you one of my favorite things. This is one of our sensory bins. All it is just a plastic bin and lots of rice. And we've had a lot of fun with it. We have scoopers right here that we've just found around the house. We have little measuring cups and things like this, and they can just scoop things up. You'll have a lot of fun with us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we put it out here and they just play, and then they can, measure things out perfectly, look for beans, bury eggs, do a lot of fun stuff like that. So that is a sensory bin, super easy to make, and then it has a top that you can put on it, or afterwards you can help your kids learn to sweep up because rice gets on the floor. So, but you don't have to use rice, you can also use beans or water or something like that. Another thing that we're going to do real quick is a science experiment. So Evangeline, can you pour the baking soda? This is just baking soda that we're pouring in this pan. And then we have little cups of vinegar right here. And now can y'all put 2 or 3 drops of the food dye in there, please? Oh, in your container, please. Oh, look at that. Evangeline has red and Solomon has blue. Okay, that's enough. Good. Thank you. And we have these little dippers. These are from like old little medicine jars, I think. Solomon, can you show us what you can do? So remember, we're going to stir it up. Can you stir it up a little bit? And Evangeline, can you put a dipper in there real quick? Ready?
It says dark.
Oh, it is? It's a dark blue. Oh, look at that. Did you see that? Try it again. You try some, Solomon. We're gonna put this in here like this. And then we're gonna watch it suck up into there and then put it in there. Put it on in. Okay. We're gonna go like this. Okay, and then we're gonna pour it. Yay! And it's kind of a fun little activity for the kids to watch. And it'll keep them busy for a little while. And they can pour and watch it make noises. You can pour it in there to make it faster, but I kind of like the little droppers because it lengthens the activity. And one last thing I want to show you while they're busy doing that. This is just contact paper right here that I just taped onto the wall with some painter's tape. And I have these 3 little bowls right here. These are just pom-poms, but other little things that I just found around the house. This is some tissue paper and then some cutout hearts. And we just are putting them up here just to stick them on the wall, and then some little fun little other little colorful items to put on the wall. So anyway, this is what we're doing at home, some of the activities that we're doing at home. So I hope you have a wonderful day and have a good one. Bye.
Courtney, thank you so very much. Again, that was Courtney Whittington. She's a part of a group and helps to lead a group called the DC Area Moms Blog in Washington, D.C. And like Courtney did, if any of you have ideas, activities, lessons, suggestions that we can do while we're outside of the classroom, please send them to us. We are at WJLA.com/chime in. We're on all of the social media. If you can hit us up on Facebook. We're streaming right now on Facebook Live. And thank you, everybody on Facebook that's tuning in. Send us some questions, please. We'd love to interact with you in any way we can. But I did want to recap and go over a couple of very important things relative to the learning process. Let's face it, lots of us have been thrown into the role of becoming a teacher, on top of being a parent, on top of being an employee, and it's stressful. So we're trying our very best here to give you some tips to help with the learning process as you transition to that role of teacher, and we're away from all the classrooms and the experts that really do guide our children through all of the things on a daily basis. These are a couple of items from my standpoint as being an educator that I try to look for and I try to do when I'm doing things at home. Your children, big, small, older, younger, have a lot of information that they can bring to the table. There's a lot of prior knowledge related to the things that we've been trying to talk about in this show and in the classroom. So ask your kids what they know. Try to get some of that information out first before you jump into an activity. Another very important thing relative to the learning process from my standpoint would to be make learning active. We're trying our very best right now to focus on the idea of learning something new, not completing tasks per se. We're not in school right now. We're out of school, but if we can make learning active, that's a great way to try and encourage that learning process. Build some things, use simple items from around home. And then the other idea that really has hit me as an educator is this idea and the theory of multiple intelligences. Howard Gardner, a very famous educator, talked about and wrote about this idea that when we are learning, we are all looking at things in a different way with a different lens. And sometimes, let's face it, some of us are better at picking up maybe math or social studies or science or nature or the environment in a much faster way than others. That's the beauty of life, right? And if you look at that idea and try to pay attention to those intelligences that your kids bring to the table, that would be great. We're right now going to take a look here, speaking of patterns and getting back to patterns, at some patterns that we see in geography around the DC area. Patterns show up in all facets of life. We've got patterns in math, we have weather patterns, patterns in behavior. Patterns are a big part of geography as well. We're taking a look right now at a map of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've got the state of Maryland, DC, most of the Mid-Atlantic showing up here on this map. And if you're looking at this map, and this is accessible online, you can also go to Outside the Classroom at WJLA.com and check out an image of this map as well. You could print it out and do this exercise at home. But if you're looking at this map, there are patterns that show up. Patterns of where people are living, where roads are built, and elevation. One of the patterns that we like to point out from a geography and earth science standpoint is the position of what we call the fall line, where we see a a gentle change in elevation, and sometimes it's an abrupt change in elevation, I should say, from the coastal plain that goes out towards the ocean to the Piedmont sections of Virginia and heading into Maryland. If you look at this map, that coastal plain ends up showing up here, and I'm going to draw it. You can kind of see through the colors represented on the map where this fall line ends up showing up. And the fall line runs right through parts of the DMV as well. We go over it and along it all the time. One of the features that was built along the fall line, because it's the same elevation and much easier to work with if you have to manipulate or build something, is I-95. And that's a highway that runs right along the fall line here, almost at the same elevation, and that's a road that we all use, and that's one of the reasons why geography and patterns play such an integral part in our lives and how we get around. One of the things you can do as we're outside and away from the classroom, an idea for you at home, if you're having trouble motivating your son, your daughter, or whomever you're caring for, if you're having trouble motivating them, one of the things we've come up with to encourage the process of reading is try to read to something that doesn't. So we sent our son Seaton outside yesterday, and he was reading a book relative and to wild animals, to our fish outside. So if motivation to encourage the idea of thinking outside of the box and doing things a little bit differently, reading to something that doesn't read would be an activity that you could do at home. We're outside, we're enjoying this beautiful sunny weather that we've got around the region, and I would like to introduce a few other people here to outside the classroom, some folks that are going to be contributing on and off at times and hopefully continue. Rachel Kay, she's with us here, my colleague from Stormwatch 7. Rachel, thank you for being here.
It's a beautiful day.
It's beautiful. And my daughter Kennedy. She agreed to join us out here. Kennedy loves to garden, and so we're going to spend a few minutes looking at patterns in the garden. We can garden. Also loves to garden, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier. What are we going to be planting today?
We're going to be planting some carrots. I've got in particular over here purple carrots, which I love. They have, just extra nutrients with the purple color. Still taste great. And thanks for providing them. Yeah. I'm happy to help your garden grow. So I was just reading the instructions on the back and even thinking with our theme of patterns this week that these are going to be planted half an inch apart. Yep. So you're going to kind of create a pattern with the seeds even in that line. And you've got some orange.
Yep, we've got Kennedy's. Thank you, Kennedy. We're pointing out the same thing. Pattern to plant. Over the next weeks, we can monitor the growth of these and look for a graph of these carrots and perhaps create a graph to graph out and measure the growth of the carrots. So those are some things that we can work on, and those are some carrots in the ground and start looking at and trying to keep and monitor. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist Ryan Miller with meteorologist Rachel Kay. and my daughter Kennedy. We're here today enjoying the beautiful weather outside. You can hear patterns, and that's been our theme for the show. Patterns in the birds that have been chirping, and patterns in all facets of life. Rachel, we were talking about and discussing the idea of trying to get folks to interact with us on social media. Please, if you're on Facebook, join us on Facebook Live or Instagram Live or Twitter, and let us know how we can help to serve you as you try to encourage that learning process at home. Anything we can talk about here, Rachel, relative to social?
You know, this is where, in particular on Facebook, there's so many different ways you can interact online. But I do have the Facebook live stream up throughout the show, and we're monitoring it. So far, we've got just people wishing us good morning. So good morning to you, Elsa, and Candace, and AG saying fun, fun, fun. So thank you guys for watching. But we'd love to, in addition to just saying hi, hear what patterns you guys are seeing around your area. So if you want to join us on the Facebook Live, kind of in the comment section, I mean, those are things that we can share on air as well, give you a little shout out and a thanks for watching. But we've seen a lot of patterns out here just in your backyard.
Yeah, plenty of patterns today.
Day to get outside too and look around for that.
It really is. And what were you going to say, Kennedy?
It's really beautiful.
It's really beautiful outside. It feels good with the sunshine on us. Taking a look at the grass that's growing and the birds chirping. We've had some bees fly by. It's a great day to be outside and a great day to look at and look for some patterns. An activity that you could do outside today if you wanted to go out and look for patterns in nature. Maybe look at some of the leaves. That are out there, and sketch a pattern and send that sketch to us, please. We'd love to see it. We've got about 20 seconds left in the show. You've got a pattern on your shirt. In 10 seconds, how many push-ups could you do, you think?
Maybe
7? Wow, that's
pretty good.
That's more than me. Thank you so much for tuning in to Outside the Classroom. Please join us all the time and anytime and online. Welcome to Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's a beautiful sunny day around the region, and after some gloomy days, it's really good to feel some of that sunshine, feel some of that warmth, and to enjoy some of this very fine spring weather. We're here today to help others in the community, help you out, give you some ideas, some suggestions, things that you can do to keep that learning process going at home while we're away from the classroom. And we're going to be looking at lots of cool things today. We've talked about in previous shows the idea of getting outside and trying to map out and look at the landscape in your yard or around the building that you live in. Can you identify the plants that you are living near and all the differences in the plants and their growth and whether or not you see some flowers? Chime in is one of the ways you can send us pictures and interact with us. We have WJLA.com/chimein, CHIMEIN. Visit Chime In, send us your photos. In fact, we got great photos from the Youngdahl family in Arlington, Virginia. Kylie and Rylan Youngdahl were out taking pictures and looking at their garden and the landscape around their house and coming up with their landscape plans. Kylie, Rylan, thank you so very much here for doing that and sharing your photos with us on Chime In. We're going to be looking at lots of interesting things today. We're going to ask you to do some activities outside. You can go download some resources in color. If you want to look for patterns outside, perhaps you can send us some pictures of patterns in and around your house. We are going to be looking at patterns today in a very unique way. We're fortunate to have a friend of mine, John Turnauer, who is the greenskeeper and manages the beautiful field at Nats Park. He's going to show us how we can put patterns today into the grass. We've all seen those very fabulous patterns on the field at Nats Park and pretty much everywhere in every ballpark with professional athletes playing and even ones without professional athletes. But we're going to give you some tips and some tricks here, and John's going to show us how to put patterns into your lawn. or not into your lawn, how he does it on his grass in the field at Nats Park, but perhaps you could put some patterns in your lawn and send us some photos. John Turnauer now is going to show us on this video.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is John Turnauer. I'm the Director of Field Operations here for the Washington Nationals. And today we're going to talk about how we establish a pattern in a baseball field. And I've heard a couple different theories, anything from, are you using different color green paint? Is it a different mowing height out here? And really what it comes down to is a couple different things. It's not using different color paints. It's not a different mowing height. It really comes down to the actual mower itself. The mower that we use out here is specifically designed for sports field management, golf course management, not typically something that you would see out in a residential lawn. And on the back of each one of our cutting units, we have a roller out here. And these rollers really serve two purposes. One is it helps us establish our mowing height itself. And the other added benefit to this roller is it really helps us enhance our pattern out here and gives us that striping effect. So when we come out here and mow, the more times that we mow a pattern, the more enhanced it's going to be. And the other thing that helps us enhance a pattern is the actual sunlight itself. Take today, for instance, we got high sunlight out here. There's not a cloud in the sky. So when we come out here and mow, that pattern is really going to stand out and it's really going to pop. If it was a day like today, if it was more of a cloudier day out here and you don't see the sunlight, you're still going to see the stripes. It's just not going to be as enhanced. And the same goes for a night game. You're still going to be able to see everything. It's just not going to be as enhanced as it is during the day. So if you come out here during an afternoon baseball game and there's not a cloud in the sky and you got good sunlight out here, that pattern is going to really pop out here. The grass is going to look green and your pattern is going to pop. If you come out here for a night game, it's still going to have that same effect, but just not to the same degree as during a day game itself. The other thing that we use out here that helps us establish a pattern is a string line. And anytime that we go ahead and we set a pattern out here, we use a string line to help us establish that. And this is really only used for the first pass itself. It's not used on every single mowing stripe that you see out here. So for this particular demonstration, we have an up the middle pattern from second base out to center field. We come out, we set this string line out, we make sure it's nice and tight, and now we have our guideline out here. We'll take the mower right on top of it to establish our first line out here, and once that mowing line is in, then we can go ahead and mow the rest of the field off of that. The string line no longer serves a purpose for us. So throughout the course of the baseball season, we generally have about 3 different mowing patterns that we use. We do a checkerboard pattern, we have another pattern just mowing up the middle, and then our third pattern that we use is a diamond pattern. And for all 3 of those patterns, this string line is what we put out to help us establish that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the more that we mow a pattern, the more enhanced it is going to be. So to go ahead and further provide a demonstration out here, we're going to go ahead and hop on our mower, and this is going to give us a good visual out here to really just provide more demonstration on how we go ahead and get this in. So as that mower is going away from us, it's pushing all that grass into one direction, giving us that light effect. And when we come over to the next pass over it, under this dark pass, that roller on the back of each cutting unit is now pushing that grass all towards me, and it gives us that dark effect. And again, as that mower is going away from me, it gives you a different variation of that light pass. And if I pivot from my current spot where I'm standing, that light pass is now a dark pass. And again, that really all has to do with the angle that you're looking at the field and the way that that grass is pushed into one direction. And that's really just a quick demonstration on how we establish patterns, how they are established in the field. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope that we see you out here at the ballpark in the near future.
That was John Turnauer, the greenskeeper for the Washington Nationals. Fantastic video, John. Thank you so much for taking the time to send us some information on how to put those really intricate and cool patterns onto the field of Nats Park. Now, when we return, we're going to be looking at patterns in mathematics and how patterns in mathematics can actually give us really cool artistic designs. All of that when we return, and this is Outside the Classroom. We're keeping that, or at least we're trying to keep that learning process going as we're away from school. And this is Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist Ryan Miller, looking at patterns everywhere in life, whether it's in building, whether it's in music, whether it's in nature, in art. We're going to continue this theme of patterns going and focus a little bit on geography and mathematics here going forward for the next bit of time. And we'd like to invite you to interact with us on social media. We're going to be streaming, and we are streaming this live on Facebook. We got a question just a few minutes ago from
Jessica.
Meteorologist Rachel Kay, my colleague in the Stormwatch 7 Weather Center, joining us. Jessica asked us...
we want to start planting seeds. How do we best start them this time of year? Inside?
Okay, so Jessica, thank you for sending the question. We're grateful for that. Couple of answers. That's kind of a complex question to answer. Number one, it depends on the type of plant you're growing. So if you're growing something like carrots, and that's something we've planted outside, carrots will fare well if it stays a little cool or cold at times. So there are certain plants you can grow when it's a little bit colder, and certain plants that don't really do well when it's cold. Tomatoes come to mind as one of the plants that would not do well if it's cold out. And this is still a little too early here in spring to let it rip in the garden per se. So you're probably going to want to start anything inside. That's at least for safety's sake. We could still see a frost here or there, even though we have not had much of freezing weather to speak of. So my suggestion is just to safely do it inside if you have the materials and the resources to do so. And then probably in about a month, then we can transition out to the garden outside and get everything going. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sending us that question. Any others out there right now, Rachel, that we should be looking at or answering?
That's the only question so far, but thanks for sharing, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. We're going to look at now some patterns in geography. I would like to, again, go over a couple of ways that you can do some things at home. If you have internet access and the availability of a computer, you can go to a website. Our friends at ESRI, which is a Geographic Information Systems company, GIS as an acronym for short. Hey, maybe that could be some homework. Acronym. If you can write that word out, spell it, put it on a piece of paper, take a picture, and send it to us, perhaps we could recognize you for that great spelling. So go to arcgis.com, and I wanted to show you a couple of things you could do to look for patterns in geography. This is showing us arcgis.com. And you don't need to have a login or an account or anything. But if you go to the website, there's a little tab that says Map. It's at the top. If you click on that Map tab, you'll be able to pull up what looks like a giant glossary, or I should say an atlas of the United States. And really, it's all parts of the world. One of the things you can do is explore this as if it were a globe. But after you click on Map, then you can go to Modify Map. And Modify Map is up here in the upper right-hand corner. If you click on Modify Map, you're given some options to add variables, to add things to your map. And if you click on that little button, it says Add right there. And if you click on it and hit Search, think of something that you'd be curious about relative to geography and math. Think about some of the things that you could potentially identify patterns. We have looked at earthquakes already, but let's pull that up one more time. Earthquakes. I'm going to type earthquakes in here. Hit Enter, and you'll be given some options on the earthquakes, but recent earthquakes is a layer that you can add to the map that has the geographic location of all of the recent earthquakes that have occurred around the world. And it's showing you a couple of things relative to the earthquakes, whether it's the strength of the earthquake, the magnitude, or we are seeing some patterns show up. So those are some patterns in geography. Send us some video of you working with arcgis.com. Make some cool maps, and please let us know how those maps turn out. We're going to turn now to mathematics and take a look at this video that we shot. This is video relative to mathematics showing up and patterns showing up in math. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller. Here's an idea as we're away from the classroom and away from school that you could do at home. We took some sidewalk chalk and we took a hockey stick. I just grabbed that out of the shed, and we're going to do a little geometry and a little bit of putting together a math lesson that looks at the idea of the coordinate system and graphing out things and using a coordinate system. We made a y-axis here that you can see in this color, and we numbered it. We used 2 bricks, and we can treat this driveway as if it were graph paper. So you don't even need to do this inside. You can do it outside when the weather gets nice. And we then built an x-axis that you can see here at the bottom and labeled it sequentially 1 through 6. Now this is an idea where you can take several straight lines, and we're using the hockey stick to make the straight lines, and turn those straight lines from a geometry perspective into a curve. Here's how you do it. You'll take your straight edge, whatever it might be. You could use a broom handle, you could use a piece of wood, you could try and do it on your own, but the better chances here of this working is if you do use a straight edge and you take one of your numbers and you draw a straight line to the opposite on your grid. So for example, 6, you draw a line to 1. Then you move your straight edge and you go from 5 over to 2. And then from 4 over to 3, and then from 3 over to 4, and you keep that pattern going, and that pattern then will eventually give you a curve with all of your straight lines. That's an idea that you can do outside. It's easy, it does not require a lot of things in terms of supplies, and that's an idea for you.
Ryan, you've been explaining patterns. You asked me to talk about math patterns. So what is a math pattern? Well, like any other pattern, it's a sequence that repeats itself based on a given rule. And in this case, we're going to use that rule to solve these math patterns. So let's take a look at the first row here. This first math pattern, we go from 3 to 7 to 11. What do you suppose the next number is? Well, between 3 and 7, there's 4 numbers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 numbers. If we add 4 to 7, we'll get 11. So what do you suppose the next number might be? Well, you're right, it is 15. And if we add 4 to that, we get 19. And this next row, while the numbers may look a little big toward the end, don't let them intimidate you. As we go from 3 to 6, that's what? 3. If we add 3 to that, what would we get? We would get 9. So in this case, the numbers are actually doubling. That is our rule and what we're going to use to solve this math pattern. Each time we're going to double. We're doubling 12, we get 24. If we double 24 again, what do we get? We'll get 48. And then the bottom row, the numbers, they're really big. So let's see if we can figure it out. 4, 26, 48. What do you suppose the pattern might be? Well, if we double this, we'll get 8, so it can't be that. What's 4 from 26? Let's see, that is 22. If I add 22 to 26, I think I'll get 48. And if I add 22 to 48, I would get 70. And if I add 22 to 70, I would actually get 92. So always try to find those patterns. I know you've been finding them in nature. Don't let them intimidate you when it comes to math. Have fun.
Mathematician. Really appreciate the video, Veronica. It was awesome. We're going to be looking at how you can take measurements and going to math and doing some things outside. I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day right now. If you can come up with a way to measure, we have a great ruler online at WJLA.com/outside the classroom. You can print that ruler out and measure away if you'd like. It is to scale and ready to go right out of the box. If you do have a ruler or something at home, you can get outside and start measuring. You can measure the length or the width, or even maybe the perimeter or the area of objects. Lots of different options available to take and start measuring things outside. And please share us and show us your pictures of measuring things outside. Rachel, what were you going to add to this about measuring some things? Do you have any ideas or some suggestions?
You know, we were just talking about measuring maybe patterns, and if you look at your sidewalk, a lot of these will be in kind of similar size or shape. Blocks of concrete, if you will. And so right here, it's kind of an uneven pattern. But if you wanted to measure, even say, you know, this is obviously a shorter yardstick than the full sidewalk, but we could make a little mark here. So this is 39 inches. And then we'll add to that. So we'll move this over a bit. And that's another 21 inches. So you add 39 plus 21 and you get 60. Did I do that right on the spot?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks for double checking me, Ryan. And then you could measure, I'm gonna step into the road here for a sec. Nobody's coming, but kids, if you're at home, make sure your parents are around. And then we can measure, so we did, let's say the length, and now we'll do the width. So this is another 39, and we'll add 11, so we'll get 50 there. So this is a 50 by 60 block. And then, you know, you can make patterns with that there.
Or even talk about geometry. We don't have a square, we have an actual rectangle.
True.
With the length and the width being different. So there's lots of ways to try and incorporate math and geometry into everything you do outside. We're going to get out and start measuring 6 feet apart and marks that are 6 feet apart. And as we begin to measure those marks, we're going to come back here and take a look at patterns showing up in exercise and patterns showing up in dance. So we're going to head out. We'll see you in just a few seconds here. Thank you for watching Outside the Classroom. We've got some 6-foot measurements to make. Welcome back to Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist, science teacher Ryan Miller. It's a beautiful day across the region. We've been examining the idea of patterns showing up in math and in geography and in science. Heck, you can even go outside now and mow your lawn and put some patterns into that. Send us all the photos that you can take or video that you can take, putting your patterns to work. As we are outside the classroom and away from school, patterns show up everywhere. That includes exercise and that includes dance. We're lucky enough to have my beautiful wife Shireen, and it's her birthday today. She's 29. Shireen is going to be leading us in some exercises that would involve using patterns and looking at patterns to dance and to get a workout. Shireen?
And the great thing about it is when you listen to the music, you'll hear the beat, and there'll be different patterns to that music. What we do in our dance fitness classes is we apply the pattern to that beat. So for example, I might go 2 this way and 2 that way. And I would do my arms and I would move my legs just like that. So 2 and 2. Another pattern that we do is a single, double. So it's 1, 1, 2, 2. And then it's alternating 1, 1, 2, 2. 1, 1, 2, 2. So I've got my lovely assistants here to show and demonstrate what that looks like. All right, girls, we're gonna go 2 to the left, 2, 2, 2, 2. Great job. Now for the single, double. Ready? Single, double. Single, double. Single, double. Keep it going. Single, double. Single, double. Single, double. Great job, guys. Great job.